A retired four-star general just sounded real alarm, and Washington went quiet. Guys, when a retired four-star general speaks up in a public like this, you pay attention. General Glenn VanHerck, a former head of USA Naval Command, a former head of NORAD. If this is some random voice, this is a man who ran the continental defense for years. And at a major defense conference in Asheville, Alabama, he said something blunt, painfully blunt. He said USA forces got out of water during a recent incident overseas. All the aircraft decided all the technology managed to strike as the USA based. The first time in the decade American forces faced what kind of aerial surprise. Let that sink in for a second. He called it embarrassing. His word, not mine. And when he said something even more important, he said we failure that really about the enemy's capability. It was about confusion at home. Different branches of the military pointing fingers at each other. Nobody stepping up to own the responsibility. What not hardware problems, what leadership problems. Stop with me here what a second. If you had a retired general say your country's military leadership couldn't even agree on who was in charge, would what you may have any weapons. A comment below. I want to hear your good questions because this story doesn't stop there. While all of this is happening, there's a separate reporting on how defense funds are being spent. Investigation from military times and stars and stripes describe rough conditions on board US Navy carriers, plumbing failures, flooding in living areas, and deployment taking a serious toll on the graves physically and mentally at the very same time. All reporting broke down enormous spending on food gathering context for top defense officials. Millions spent on the steak, millions spent on the lobster, and a single mold. Saluted during with broken plumbing on one hand, the steak and the lobster bills and remains on over. You don't need me told me you have white lines for people sailing on a voice ship and event to raise the biggest budget picture. Official are pushing massive spending in the hundreds of billions towards large traditional naval vessels. Meanwhile, modern warfare, warfare is shifting harder towards drones, unmanned system, and low-cost aerial technology. Critics argue that pouring money into all this style firepower while keeping investment into naval defense system leaves real gaps exposed. That retention right at the center of history, spending priorities where is a better part really. Here's my honest take. You can draw a normal amounts of money at a military, but money doesn't fix the confusion about should it's possible to forward. It doesn't fix no moral at a ship with a broken plumbing. Leadership is celerity does what. And right now, according to one word, we must experience commanders in recent USA history. That clarity is missing. I want it to be fair. Wow, defense official would like argue a large scale naval investment still matters for long-term strategic power, and the budget stories always look more dramatic in isolated headlines, but in full context, what is a real content point worth holding on to? So here's my question for you. When a four-star general public calls something embarrassing, should that be the moment everyone stop and listen, or does even what kind of wedding get lost in the noise ways these days? Tell me what you think in the comment, and I want you to know if this story is landing for you the way it landing for me.